This video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Hey guys, Big Paul here today. Had several people reach out to me and ask me if I thought Chris Bumstead talking about his cycle, if it was BS or if it was legit. So I'm going to give you my 2 cents on it. I know everybody on the internet has already chimed in on this one. I'm kind of late to the party, but what the fuck ever. We're going to have fun with it. I'm going to dig into it, listen to what he has to say, and let you know my thoughts on it in just 1 second.
Into it myself. But yeah, so back to my point, I'm not supposed to eat beef right now because I did a LRA test, which is a lymphocyte reactivity assay, and it's to show different things, I don't know the proper word, that your body doesn't react well with, and it can cause oxidation, inflammation, just stuff that your body doesn't like. And it was like a $2,500 blood test with 12 different vials that came out, and they used my blood to test it with all these things, and a few things that came back were like beef, tuna, sugar, there's a seaweed, the color green, the color blue, like green dyes, and it just showed me that this stuff isn't stuff I should eat, or at least cut it in my diet for like 6 months. So I'm gonna be trying not to eat any of those things for 6 months, and hopefully that helps me with my inflammation, my autoimmune, and all that good stuff, because a lot of autoimmune issues come from the gut. So me helping that is helping my autoimmune, hopefully.
Okay, so this first section here isn't his cycle, but I wanted to include it because he did talk about this in the video where he was talking about his cycle, but his issue with autoimmune disorders, and I'm not specifically sure what autoimmune disease he has, and I know it was affecting his kidneys, which is why he had to cut his doses back. But talking about getting tested for foods and how different foods cause autoimmune responses, and I think a lot of bodybuilders suffer through gut issues that are actually autoimmune responses to foods you eat. That's why like dudes get all upset when I poo-poo all over whey protein powder. It's not that I think whey is a problem per se, or a worse protein than eating beef or whatever. You can look at the studies and yada yada, but a lot of people have gut reactions to it. It doesn't matter if it is whey isolate. I am one of them. If I eat whey protein, I automatically start farting, and if I have too much of it, then I get diarrhea. And there are a lot of people that have that same issue. So it is clearly some sort of autoimmune response to it. There are other foods too. I went through a full battery of allergy tests to get things found out, with all these gut issues that I've had in the past. I've had IBS, but I also have all sorts of food intolerances and autoimmune responses to things like onions, garlic, peppers, things that you wouldn't normally consider. Coffee was another one. So these are things that a lot of bodybuilders just suffer through, and they have all sorts of gut issues, and they broccoli, that was another one I have issues with. So a lot of vegetables don't agree with me, and I found out. And you don't have to do the expensive $2,500 genome test or whatever it is that he had done. There is a cheap test called the All-Cat test you can get that'll kind of give you a high-level view of what foods that you have intolerances to and which ones you have full-blown allergies to. And it is well worth spending the money to get it if you're going to be pounding a lot of food so you know what to eat. For my diets, for my coaching clients, I primarily use a food list that they can choose from what they want to eat, and it is from a FODMAP list. I give people FODMAP foods to eat. Those FODMAP foods are, if you want to look up the FODMAP diet, those are foods that are known to be low FODMAP foods, or foods that are known to be well tolerated, and that gastroenterologists use for people who have gut issues in food intolerances. But anyway, I thought this was important to point out.
That's why I'm going to be taking 4 days off training, because I'm getting blood work done this weekend. And a lot of times as bodybuilders, when you train really hard, it can increase your creatinine levels, and higher stress and inflammation in the body, and can affect your blood work a little bit. So to get a better baseline, you're supposed to take time off before going to the gym and before getting blood work. So next 3 days, taking off the gym. after today. And then blood work on the weekend, making sure I'm healthy. And after that, we're going to be starting my off season.
Okay, so this was another one I thought was important to point out that he had talked about, was taking a few days off from the gym before getting your blood work done. And there's a lot of stuff I see guys do that screw up their blood work. Now, you have to keep in mind with blood work, it is a snapshot in time of where you're at that specific given time. It is not indicative of where you were at yesterday or the day before. Some things are a trend. That's why I look at trends on blood work over a course of time. But a lot of the stuff that we do in the gym and in our lifestyle actually throws these blood panels off. You have to keep in mind that these blood panels and what they consider average ranges are average ranges for the couch potato American that does nothing but sit on their ass all day long. They're not designed for athletes. So there are certain things that get thrown off on blood tests, like liver enzymes, elevated liver enzymes. A lot of times they're not actually problems with your liver. It is the byproduct of stress from lifting hard. When you lift hard, your body releases the same stressors that they measure for for elevated liver enzymes. Your body releases the same metabolites on liver enzyme tests. So it's probably not actually a liver enzyme issue. It is an issue with you're just trained hard. You have these metabolites from the byproduct from training hard in your system, and it shows up as a elevated liver enzyme. Whereas if you wait it 2 or 3 days, your liver enzymes are normal. Another one I see that's thrown off all the time, and I know this for a fact, is that dudes go in all the time and they tell you to get your blood work done fasted. For some reason, people think fasted means don't drink any water either. They go in and get their blood work done, and their hematocrit and hemoglobin is elevated. And it's usually elevated from being dehydrated. The reason why I say that that's not always accurate, sometimes it is, but I bought a hemoglobin meter, and I've measured my hemoglobin in the morning and in the evening after I've been hydrated, and it can be, my hematocrit can be 5 points different from the morning than it is when I'm well hydrated. So I don't know that that's always accurate. So make sure that you've drank plenty of water before you go in and get your blood work tested. Another one is creatinine. That one can be thrown off from training. And from what I understand, I could be wrong about this, so somebody please correct me if I am, that creatine can actually throw that test off as well. So that you get a false high on creatinine. It's not always high. So just some things to keep in mind. So it's a good idea to take a couple days off from hard training. If you're doing a blood work fasted, make sure that you're well hydrated before you go in and get your blood work done. I don't know that you need to take 4 days off from training, but a couple probably is plenty. Don't train over the weekend. Get your blood work done on a Monday. That's kind of my 2 cents on it.
But my supplements have been very low this year. They're 2 centuries. I'm trying not to say specific words because I don't like talking about it, because people take stuff and run with it and copy it, and I don't want that to be the point of this. But the point I would like to say is that getting the most of the least is still something that all bodybuilders should be trying to do. And I have had 14 months between Olympias, and a weight cap that I don't have to make. So I've been just really focusing on my health. I got a new doctor. I'm doing blood work. This is the 4th time this year that I've done blood work, and it's been getting better and better progressively. So the more you know, the more you can handle stuff. And that has helped with my stress around my health that I've had in the past due to my autoimmune. So I've been, like I said, very low dose in my supplements that I've been doing. I'm going to be going up a little bit more after this if I'm healthy. And I hate talking about it because I don't want to say things. I don't want people to do it. But numbers are around 200 that I've been doing.
All right, so reading between the lines here, he's saying that he's running 200 milligrams a test, just cruising on it, getting healthy, letting his health recover for the majority of the year after the Olympia. Do I think that's legit? Possibly. People don't believe it. They don't want to believe it. They never want to hear it. But if you have your diet buttoned up and you have your training buttoned up, that you can maintain a fair amount of muscle mass on 200 milligrams a test. My testosterone levels are like 1,400 on 200 milligrams a test. You don't think you can maintain what you have on that amount? And I think what people mistake with their own experiences, they take shit stuff like D-ball and Anadrol, and they take a bunch of tests and they just get all bloated and swollen up, and then they come off and they lose 20 or 30 pounds, and they think that's muscle, and they think that's what happens to every pro bodybuilder. That's not real muscle tissue. That's just bloat. It's not even real muscle tissue, but real contractile tissue doesn't take much to maintain it. If you have your diet buttoned up, your training on point, you can certainly maintain a fair amount of mass on 200 milligrams of testosterone. You might not be as full. You might not have the same central nervous system motivation. You might not be able to push as much weight in the gym, but it doesn't take a lot to maintain size. I've done it a million times. Maintain 270 pounds on 200 milligrams of test. It's not that hard. Now, with that said, putting size on, you do have to push the gas pedal down a little bit. So I think that's where people get confused. So you have to recall that Chris I've heard them talk about how he has trouble making the weight for Classic, that he really has to cut down super hard and do some extreme things on his diet to get down low enough to make it in on Classic Physique. So he's a big dude, clearly. So maintaining what he needs to maintain is not that hard. Now, if he was an open class bodybuilder, having to be 300, 320 pounds in the off season, then it's a lot different. And he talked about pushing up to 500 on his blast. My guess would be that's 500 tests, and then he's probably throwing some sort of anabolic in with that. You can make progress on fairly low amounts of stuff, but at the same time, where Chris is at right now, he's not adding size. He doesn't have any room to add size. So I mean, he can't get any bigger for Classic Physique. I mean, he's already struggling to make weight. So how much does he really have to take to maintain that? Probably not much would be my guess.
I come off once a year completely, and then I've been doing very low dose, 200 a week. And then after that, I'm going to go up to like 500 maybe, and that's going to be my peak off season. And with that, my body can easily get up to like 265 if I'm training and eating perfectly.
Yeah, so this is another thing Chris talks about is coming off once a year. I don't know why pro bodybuilders still do this shit. I don't see the health benefit in coming off for 6 weeks. If you're running fucking enanthate ester and it stays in your system for 7 or 8 days, it takes 5 half-lives for it to get out of your system. You're only off gear for like, so if it's, you do the math on it, it's like 35, 40 days for it to clear your system, and then you're off for 6 or 8 weeks. You're only off testosterone for 3 weeks. I mean, does that make any sense? Is that any benefit to your health? All you're really doing is just crashing your fucking hormones, in where your estrogen dominant and inflammation is increased. How is that helpful for autoimmune disease? I don't see the benefit of it. It's just an old school bro logic thing that just makes no fucking sense that guys still do. So I don't know. I think it's a waste of time, but if it works for him, rock on.
Do the basics before anything. Make sure your training and your eating is perfect before adding more supplements to the mix, because it's literally pointless. You don't get the same out of that shit as you would from the training, and I've proven that to myself. When I was young, I used to run a typical cycle that most bodybuilders would, still very low amounts, but the typical amount of compounds, like 4 or 5 compounds throughout a prep, and now I'm down to like 1 or 2, and I've decreased everything and looked much better because I've been more efficient. I'm older now, more muscle maturity, but I've also just focused more on all year being on my diet, on my training, on my health, on everything perfectly, and it's allowed me to hopefully extend my career much further than it should have been, given the fact that I already have an autoimmune disease.
This is another really good point he makes that I want to pound home to gym bros, and I see it so often. I get guys that are running like double the amounts of gear than I am, and they don't look very good. They reach out to me, I talk to them, I'm like, what are you doing, man? And they think the secret, and I see it all the time, guys that just can't get their diet together, can't get their training together, and they blame it on the gear. Well, it must be they're doing more than me. So that's the answer. It's not the diet, it's not the training that's the difference. So they just keep upping the gear and upping the gear, upping the gear, and they don't see any results. Well, if you aren't eating properly, if you're not eating in a surplus, how how do you think you're going to gain any muscle? If you're not eating enough protein, how do you think you're going to gain any muscle? If you're not eating enough carbohydrates, how do you think you're going to fill out? If you're taking insulin, I mean, it's just butt stupid. And I see guys do these butt stupid things all the time where they just run these super high dose cycles, and then they use toxic stuff. They're like, well, I gained 30 pounds running Anadrol. Well, no fucking shit you gain 30 pounds running Anadrol and D-ball, because that shit bloats you up. It's not real muscle. It's not real muscle weight. That's why you lose it all when you come off too, because it's not real. It's not real contractile tissue. So I agree with him 100% here. And this is what I do with my coaching clients when I'm working with them. We get the nutrition and we get the training dialed in first. Honestly, with the training, it's secondary to the nutrition to me. I think the nutrition is the most important part. And that's the part that guys really screw up is the nutrition. Most people don't eat enough. The food that they eat is the wrong types of food. They eat way too much fat and they don't eat enough carbs. They either overdo the protein or they underdo the protein, or they're doing stupid shit like keto diets and things like that are just not very good for physiques building. And then they don't know why they're getting results, so they just automatically assume it's got to be more gear, or they just don't follow a fucking diet at all, which is the case in a lot of situations. The answer is let's run some gear, which is the wrong answer. I'm not saying that more gear doesn't work, but more gear only works if you're providing the right fuel and stimulus to make it work. So that's my 2 cents on that one. And he is right about this, and I'm glad he brought it up.
I'm not really sure of the point of all this, but pretty much I just want to really stress on anyone getting into bodybuilding, focus on the basics and the consistency of food and training before absolutely anything, because all that matters. And if ever you want to dive into the supplements, wait until the last possible minute, if you even want to do it, because it can have life-lasting negative effects to your fertility, to your sex, your libido, to your hormones, your skin, your acne, everything. And what are you doing it for? Are you going to win Olympia? Probably not. Sorry, only very few people one a year win the Olympia, so you're probably not going to. Just don't fuck your shit up, don't be an idiot. And if you love training, just fucking go after all the other things. There's a few things like natural supplements that actually have been proven to work, like terkesterone, Tonkat Ali, Fedosia agrestis, and a bunch of things that people can take, as well as creatine, protein, and all this shit, the basics. So focus on that stuff first.
I mean, these guys always crack me up when they're telling people, don't do it unless you're going to be Mr. Olympia. And they talk about the lifelong side effects of it, and clearly they're doing it, and they have done it. And who the fuck would Chris Bumstead be without steroids? He'd be just working at some fucking Walmart in Alberta, Canada, wherever the fuck he's from. Nobody would know who he was. So he's being a hypocrite here, and I don't like that. These guys, I think they're just worried about the liability that comes along with telling people to take shit. So, but that's bullshit, Chris. I'm sorry. You're full of shit here. You wouldn't be where you were without taking PEDs. So let's be honest. And there's a difference. I always use the alcohol analogy with people when I talk to them. There's a big difference between having a glass of wine with dinner and having a whole fucking bottle of tequila. And it's the same thing with gear. There is a big difference between taking 300 milligrams of testosterone and jamming 3 grams of trenbolone in a week. It's not even in the same stratosphere. So if you're sticking with safe compounds, you're doing them smartly, you're staying on top of your health, you can do this with very low risk to your health. And I'm not saying everything comes with risk, but you can do this very safely if you're taking the right compounds in the right doses and staying on top of your health. So he's being a bit of a fucking hypocrite on this one. But I get where he's coming from. He's got a huge following. He doesn't want to be irresponsible about what he says. He doesn't want anybody suing him. He's got sponsors. He's got people that don't want him probably talking about this shit. A lot of pressure to stay quiet. So I get where he's coming from. Summing it up, so what I think here, I think he's probably being a little shady about what he's taking. He probably takes a little, I don't buy that he's only taking 2 compounds on contest prep. I think that's unlikely. He's probably running 2 compounds most of contest prep, which I think is very possible, so like this year, for me, I ran less shit on contest prep and got better results. So for probably 10 weeks of my contest prep, I was just running 9, 10 weeks. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I was just running test and primo. That's probably what he did too. Ran test and primo his whole contest prep, and then at the end he probably threw in something, maybe a little tren, or maybe because he does have kidney problems, you could probably get away without the tren, and maybe he's just using some test primo in Winstrol, or test primo in Masteron, and just not using orals, period. Another thing too I want to take note of here, and I talk to pros frequently, and it's the only guys that hammer orals all the time are gym bros. Pros aren't hammering orals year round. They just aren't. They use them on contest prep, occasionally in the off season. That's a gym bro thing. So, and I'm not saying there aren't some pros that hammer orals, but for the most part, guys aren't taking shitty ass orals year round. There is a time and place for orals. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to have a short coming up that I already recorded about when to take orals, how to take them. But it's very infrequent. Most of the time these guys are just doing simple shit. Test and equipoise, test and nandrolone, test and primobolan, or maybe we running 2 compounds. Test primobolan and nandrolone. That's what I like to run. But it's just simple shit. And that's the safer shit. That's probably, how he's staying healthier. And I do think him talking about coming off once a year is pretty stupid. I don't doubt that he is cruising on 200 milligrams of test and able to maintain his size. It wouldn't shock me at all if he's only running 500 milligrams of test and maybe like 300 milligrams of primo or something in his off season, because he doesn't need to put on any size. He's just refining and polishing his physique. And for contest prep, he's probably still running test and primo, or something very mild. My guess would be test and primo if I had to guess. And then maybe like some Anavar or Winstrol or something at the end to harden up. And he's probably running some fat burners with that clenbuterol and the standard shit. So that would be my guess. Anyway, guys, that's all I got for you today. Hopefully this was helpful. I really enjoyed doing this one. This was a fun one to do. Thank you for watching. Take care. For coaching or consultations, head over to www.anabolicbodybuilding.com to book your spot today. I can help you with optimizing hormones, fat loss, muscle gain, physique, athletic performance, nutrition, and health. For more information, shoot me an email at bigp3rd@gmail.com.